Marcus is 29, and by any normal measure, Marcus works harder than almost anyone you know. He drives for a rideshare app 3 nights a week. He flips furniture he finds on Marketplace. He's got a spreadsheet tracking 2 different affiliate links he posts on his social media. Marcus is exhausted, genuinely, all the time, and Marcus has about $6,000 to his name. John is 52. John has never driven for anyone. John has never flipped a couch. Most weeks, John doesn't think about money at all, and John has $840,000. Here's the sentence that should bother you a little. The person doing less almost always ends up with more. Not because laziness is a virtue, because the specific kind of lazy that actually builds wealth isn't laziness at all. It's just money doing work that a person used to have to do by hand. Today I'm going to walk you through 7 ways to make money that genuinely require almost nothing from you once they're set up. And by the end, you'll understand exactly why Marcus's hustle and John's stillness produce 2 completely different lives. This isn't about telling you to quit your job or stop trying. It's about the fact that most people only know one way to make money: trade an hour for $1, when there's an entire second category that trades a single decision for years of dollars, and almost nobody teaches it the way they teach the first one. Here's what nobody tells you about the whole hustle culture story. It quietly assumes that money only comes from effort. Work harder, earn more. That's the whole formula. Repeated so often it stops sounding like an assumption and starts sounding like a law of nature. It isn't one. There's an entire category of income that doesn't ask how many hours you put in this week. It only asks whether you set it up correctly once. Think about how differently those 2 categories treat your time. The first one owns your calendar forever. Every dollar has a shift attached to it, indefinitely, with no way to detach the 2. The second one only ever asks for your time once, at setup, and then quietly releases you from the transaction completely. Marcus isn't lazy, and this isn't a video making fun of people who hustle. Marcus works incredibly hard. The problem was never his effort. The problem is that almost none of his effort was pointed at anything that could compound. Every dollar he makes driving on a Tuesday night disappears the moment Tuesday night ends. There's no version of that dollar still working for him on Wednesday. John's money doesn't have that problem, because almost none of it depends on John doing anything at all this week. That's not luck. That's the entire design. So let's go through exactly what that design looks like, one lazy, boring, genuinely effective move at a time. One quick honest note before we start. None of these 7 make anyone rich overnight, and if a video ever promises you that, that's the moment to close it. What they do is compound quietly, in the background, for years, which is a much less exciting pitch, and a much more reliable one. The first one is the laziest of all, and it's also the most powerful. Money that grows itself while you do nothing. This is just investing, left alone, for a long time. It sounds too simple to be a real answer, and that's exactly why most people skip past it looking for something more clever. John put a set amount into a simple index fund years ago and set up an automatic monthly contribution. He hasn't picked a stock. He hasn't timed a dip. He hasn't done anything except leave it alone through every headline that made it look scary. $1 invested decades ago and simply never touched has done more of the heavy lifting in his account than every hour Marcus has worked this year combined. Compounding doesn't care how hard you're trying. It just quietly multiplies whatever you are willing to leave alone. Here's the part that makes this the laziest item on the entire list. Once it's automated, doing more doesn't actually mean checking it more. In fact, the version of John who checks his account the least tends to end up ahead of the version who checks it every day, because every extra look is another chance to react to something that didn't need a reaction. The second laziest way is money someone else is already offering you for free, and most people never bother to pick it up. If your job offers to match part of what you put into a retirement account, that match is money appearing in your account for doing nothing except checking one box. A dollar-for-dollar match is an instant 100% return before that money's even invested in anything. There's no side hustle on earth that pays that reliably, and yet a huge share of people never claim the full match, walking past thousands of dollars a year because nobody ever told them it was sitting there. Marcus has a job with exactly this kind of match available. He's never checked the box. Not because he doesn't want free money, because nobody at his job ever explained it in plain English, and he assumed, like most people do, that anything related to retirement accounts must be complicated enough to deal with later. The third laziest way is letting a company you already believe in pay you just for holding onto a piece of it. Some companies share their profits directly with the people who own a piece of them, on a regular schedule, whether you did anything that quarter or not. It's not exciting. Nobody's making a video about the thrill of a dividend deposit, but money that lands in your account every few months because you own something, not because you worked a shift, is about as lazy as income gets, and it stacks on top of whatever growth the investment is already doing in the background. Nobody posts a video of themselves refreshing their account the day a dividend lands, because there's nothing to film. That's exactly the point. The most reliable income in this entire list is also the most boring to watch, and boring is precisely what makes it repeatable for decades without anyone burning out. The fourth laziest way is handing the boring decisions to something that never gets tired, never gets emotional, and never skips a rebalance. There's a category of tool that automatically manages an investment mix for a small fee, buying, selling, and adjusting behind the scenes so a portfolio stays roughly where it's supposed to be without a single phone call from you. Carla, John's coworker, used to spend her Sunday nights anxiously moving money between funds, trying to guess what would do well next. She handed that decision to an automated tool 2 years ago. Her account has done better since, mostly because it stopped being emotional at exactly the moments emotion used to cost her the most. Carla didn't get smarter about the market. She just removed herself from the decision at the exact moments she used to make her worst ones. Late at night, mid-panic, chasing whatever had gone up the week before. The tool doesn't have a bad night. That's the entire advantage. The fifth laziest way is money that comes back to you from spending you were already going to do anyway. This one isn't going to make anyone rich by itself, but it's about as close to free money as spending can get. A portion of every dollar spent through the right card or the right rewards program quietly returns to you, on autopilot, without you doing anything differently at the register. It's not a strategy, it's a small, steady leak plugged in the other direction, and it adds up more than people expect over a full year of ordinary spending. This is the one item on the list that genuinely requires zero new behavior. You're not spending differently. You're not spending more to earn more. You're just making sure the spending you were doing anyway isn't leaving free money on the table on top of it. The sixth laziest way is renting out something you already own that's currently doing nothing for you. A spare room, a car that sits in the driveway 5 days a week, storage space in a garage nobody's parked in for years. These are assets you already paid for, sitting idle, and there are entire platforms built around turning idle space into a small, steady stream of income, with a few hours of setup and almost no ongoing effort after that. This isn't a side hustle in the way Marcus's are. Marcus trades hours for dollars every single time. This trades a few hours once for income that keeps showing up without him. The honest trade-off here is that this one takes a little more setup than the others. Photos, a listing, maybe a conversation with insurance about coverage. But once it's live, the ongoing effort drops close to zero, which is exactly the line this whole list is drawing. A little real effort once, in exchange for years of almost none after that. The seventh laziest way is the one almost nobody thinks to automate, and it's simply auditing what you're already paying for once a year, instead of manually hunting for savings all the time. Subscriptions creep. Old services keep charging quietly, long after anyone's using them. There are tools now that scan for exactly that and either flag it for you or negotiate certain bills down automatically. It's not glamorous. It's genuinely one of the laziest items on this entire list, and it can hand back real money every single month for the cost of setting it up once and forgetting about it. Most people's instinct is to manually comb through statements looking for the culprit, get overwhelmed after 10 minutes, and give up. This last move just skips that entirely. Point a tool at the problem once and let it keep watching long after you've stopped thinking about it. Here's the thread running through every single one of these. None of them ask you to work harder. All 7 ask you to set something up correctly one time and then get out of the way. That's the opposite of what Marcus has been doing for years, and it's the exact thing John has been doing without ever calling it a strategy. Before we go any further, here's a question worth actually answering instead of skimming past. Of the 7, how many are you currently doing 0 of? Most people, if they're honest, are sitting at 1 or 2. That's not a failure. It just means there's real, free money sitting in the other 5, waiting on a single afternoon of setup. There's a reason Marcus hasn't stumbled into any of this yet, and it's worth naming honestly. Every one of his side hustles feels like progress, because he can see the effort directly, the drive, the flip, the post. Compounding, dividends, automated rebalancing, none of that feels like progress in the moment. It's quiet, it's invisible, it doesn't reward you with the feeling of having done something today. That's exactly why most people chase the loud version of making money and walk right past the quiet version that actually works better over time. There's nothing wrong with wanting to see proof of your own effort. That instinct is normal, and honestly, it's kept a lot of people going through hard months. The problem only shows up when that instinct becomes the entire strategy, and none of the actual money ever gets pointed towards something that could keep paying you long after the effort stops. That's the trap hiding underneath the whole hustle culture pitch. It sells effort as proof of progress, when the two aren't actually the same thing. Marcus feels like he's winning every night he drives. John feels like he's doing almost nothing most weeks. One of them has $6,000. The other has most of $1 million. Effort was never the variable that mattered. Direction was. So here's the honest version of lazy that this whole video is actually about. It was never about doing less work in your life. Marcus can keep every one of his side hustles if he wants to. There's nothing wrong with any of them. The real shift is making sure at least some of what he earns gets pointed toward the 7 things on this list, so some of his money finally starts working the way John's has been quietly working for years. Picture it this way. Right now, every dollar Marcus earns dies the moment he spends it, no matter how many hours it took to earn. The moment even a portion of those dollars gets routed into any one of these 7 moves, that dollar stops dying. It starts working a second job of its own, quietly, without ever asking Marcus for another shift. None of these 7 moves require picking the right stock, timing a market, or being smarter than anyone else doing the same thing. They just require setting something up once, on a calm evening, and then having the discipline to leave it alone, which, it turns out, is the one kind of laziness that actually pays. Here's the line worth remembering. The wealthy aren't working harder than everyone else. They just found the places where money makes money without them, and then they got out of its way. If this showed you at least one move from this list you're not doing yet, subscribe to Robin Wealth and hit the bell. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every single day. Make the decision that matches your reality, not someone else's hustle.